Hey, this is Craig with S&B Filters. Today we're going to be doing an install on this Speed El Jefe. Give you a quick rundown of the kit. So this is our variable speed dual fan particle separator. We give you all the ignition sensor harnesses, control board harnesses, a big 4-inch ducting, clamps to mount an 1.75-inch cage. We also have bracketry. So if you want to mount it up high, like we're going to do on this one, you mount it up high, also down in the window section. Big rotomolded intake tube, a template to cut the hole in the back bed. All the hardware you need for the install. Let's get started. Most of you will probably have a rear windshield. We're going to get this removed to start. Eventually, you'll have to make a cut to get the ducting through this area. So we're going to remove this. We're going to remove the rear storage locker and probably remove the bed for this install. Move the hardware to disconnect the rear windshield. Remove the rear windshield. Okay, we're going to remove the bed storage cabinet. Okay, before we remove the bed, we're going to disconnect these taillight connectors. There's a red locking pin here, so that slides back. And then these things are a little bit tricky. It's easier just to kind of, there's a tab in the back, and then this thing will disconnect. You'll want to snip these zip ties that are connected to the frame, so the wires don't get cut. Okay, we'll disconnect this taillight connector on the driver's side, and then we're going to cut all these zip ties, making sure that this taillight harness is dangling from the bed. Just this one zip tie is probably the only one that's holding on to the taillight. So we got this taillight connector loose on the passenger side. So we got our camera, the two taillights disconnected. We're going to remove just the 6 inside screws in the bed. So not these ones up against the tailgate. It's just these 6 here. And then the 4 across the back. And we'll be able to take the bed all out in one someday. Okay, we got the 10 screws removed from the bed and the back piece here. Now this is a M4. We're going to remove these 4 screws from the top, these button heads. Remove the 8 screws from the top of the bed. Now there's 3 on both sides of the car under the fender. We'll remove those, then we can remove the bed. Okay, we're going to prep the particle separator housing. First, we're going to start off by putting the adapter pieces to the side here. All the supply hardware is with your kit. You'll want to use some of the Loctite on each one of the bolts. It's just a little dab. And then there we go. We're gonna put the clamps onto the roll cage. So we're gonna mount this unit up top. So we're gonna go inside the car and put a clamp on the Snap it around the cage. And then okay, now that we got the clamp on around the cage here, we'll take our pivot body, we'll run our screw through that. Kind of tighten this down a little bit. You want to leave all this loose and get the separator into position before you tighten everything down. Okay, since we're mounting it up on top, we use the 1 3/4 strap bracket. If you're mounting it in the middle of the window, you'll use the supplied 1.5 inch straps. But yeah, since we're gonna mount it on the roof, we're gonna assemble the L bracket to the other supplied bracket. We'll get this mounted loosely. Just hand tight for now. And then we'll take and we'll mount this bracket assembly to the pivot body that we already got on underneath. So here we have the L bracket assembly for the roof. Again, this is all loose. We'll go up underneath, mount it to the pivot body, again loose. We'll come back through and tighten everything once we get our separator installed. Okay, now that we got our brackets loosely installed on the cage, we're gonna grab a buddy, we're gonna position this up on top. We're gonna use the other M8 hardware. We're gonna put Loctite on these, get them into position, and tighten everything up. Okay, once you're satisfied with the position, you can tighten down all the hardware. Then we'll tighten the bracket to the pivot body. Okay, now we'll tighten this L bracket to the roof mounted bracket. Okay, we're going to remove these two 13mm bolts on the seat frame. Yeah, just for ease, we're going to remove the whole seat so we can get at the back panel, drill our hole for the intake tube. Okay, we supply a template so you can cut the hole. You're going to need a 3 3/8 hole saw. So we'll get started here and cut out our template, place it in the vehicle. Got the template in place. You can see how it comes around this this radius here. In there, you can kind of line up this this screw hole up to the edge here. We'll take this into position, mark where our hole goes, and then we'll drill our hole. Okay, you can see we can just use a knife or a sharp tool, make a point where you're gonna do your cut. You're gonna want to be real careful and not go too far past this panel so that you don't damage anything behind it. So we'll just cut our hole here. We're going to remove the tube going from the frog skin up top to the airbox. We're going to loosen the hose clamps at the airbox and up top, and we'll remove the OE tube. Okay, with the OE intake tube removed, we give you this rubber cap to plug off where the connection between the airbox and the frog skin was. So we're going to install that up top. And that just goes right over the inlet. We'll tighten the hose clamp. So now with this capped off, both frog skins are pulling air for the clutch. Instead of one pulling for the intake and one pulling for the clutch, these are both now pulling air in for the clutch. Okay, next we're going to install the strap and pivot body to the cage here so that we can get this tube mounted. We have our strap for the tube mounted to the roll cage here. You're going to want to kind of get it in this general location. Just hand tighten it for now so you can position it with the bracket and the tube. We're going to prep our upper intake tube. We're going to reuse some of this thread locker here. And we're going to mount this bracket to the tube in this orientation. We can tighten down this bracket to the tube. All right, next we can install this step coupler onto the intake tube. And this will be positioned in the car like this. So we want to get this hose clamp in a position to where we can tighten it if we ever have to tighten it back up. Okay, now we can take our intake tube. We're going to install the coupler through the hole. You'll notice that the step portion kind of butts up against it. Your bracket here can line everything up. And we'll take our extra screw, put some thread locker on it. Okay, so the tube's pushed in, the coupler's in the hole there. We can go ahead and tighten down the bracket to the pivot body, and then make sure you can get at this bolt here still, and then we'll tighten down the strap and pivot body. Okay, so we're prepping the airbox tube to go through the rear wall here. So we push this coupler all the way on, put our hose clamps in this position. We're going to take the other hose clamp. You're going to want to make sure that the other coupler is coming through that wall enough to position the hose clamp on there. If it's not, you're going to want to loosen the bracket up top. So we'll get our hose clamp into position so that we can get to it. Okay, now we're going to want to take our intake tube, snake it up and over and into the coupler. In the coupler, hose clamp kind of came off, but then you can take this hose clamp and pull, or this coupler, and pull it down over the airbox. Like that. Okay, I have a buddy helping me push on the tube from the inside of the vehicle so that I can get the tube into the coupler on this side. It's a hose clamp on it, and we'll tighten everything up. Okay, now we're going to start wiring everything up. So we're going to remove the hood here. Okay, so this is our main wire harness. So you'll have 3 leads. This is the relay and the fuse up here. This will all stay in the front of the car. Pop this cap off and kind of show you what we did here. So you got your accessory wire here. It's your orange one. Your positive, it's connected here, and your ground here. So all this will stay up in the hood. We'll take the rest of this and we'll run it towards the back of the car. This will go through the center console, through the back, end up in the rear driver's seat. So then we'll connect our control board harness and our ignition coil. Okay, this kind of shows you the positioning of where we ran the wire. So we went. So if you're sitting in the driver's seat, it's going to be in the passenger footrest. So you go down this side here, and then we'll walk over to the passenger side. So pop these screws off here, pull this away. We went up in here, fished it up over this seat bracket, so it runs back down this way. Okay, so we had our wire coming through the center console on the passenger side. We went across here and came out this hole right here. And that got us to this point here. So we got our main harness from the front of the vehicle up to this point where we're going to connect with the control board. But first, I'm going to show you where we're going to route the ignition sensor. This is our ignition sensor. This is what controls the variable speed of the fans of the particle separator. So I'm going to show you how to remove the screw. You got to be very careful. There's this tiny washer and a top clip. You can sometimes do this without removing it all the way, but most of the time it just pops out. So this is this washer, screw, and top portion. We're gonna position this sensor so it's around the red wire of the ignition coil. So then once the wire goes through there, we're going to tighten this down, and that's going to get the pulse of the ignition coil. Okay, so now you see that on this ignition coil, we're going around the wire, this red wire to the far right. So that's where we're going to pick up the ignition pulse. We'll put these two, put a zip tie on either side so that this can't slide around. And then we ran our wire up over the duct here, behind the fans, across the back of the duct, up the roll bar here. So this is the plug coming from the ignition sensor. So we got going up into the control board. So this kind of shows you got your control board. Coming in here is your ignition sensor. And then coming in from here is the main harness from the front of the vehicle. And this will be your connection to the fans. Ignition sensor into the control board. This is going to be our main power coming from the front of the car into the control board here. You can kind of see where we got the control board zip tied up above. And this will be your connector to the fans. Now coming off the control board, we can connect it into particle separator. All right, now that we got everything wired up, we're going to give it a test run, make sure that the fans are ramping up, working with the variable speed. We'll turn the car on. So you'll want to make sure that the fans are going up and down with the RPMs. All right, next we're going to cut and measure and cut our ducting. So we can slide it over the particle separator housing and kind of give it a mock run of where you're going to cut. It's better to be too long than too short here, so probably going to end up like about here. So we'll make a mark here and cut our ducting to size. Okay, so got our cut here. Cut in between the wire. Okay, and then we can put the end cuffs on. So these will slide all the way to the end like that. I want to make sure that the ducting's all the way to the lip there. And then this will slide all the way over the tube there onto the particle separator there, and we can tighten our hose clamps. All right, so we just finished the install on this particle separator, the Speed El Jefe vehicle. If you have any questions for the install, just give us a call.